The rain had just stopped, leaving behind a faint scent of wet soil and sugarcane in the air. Diep sat by the window of her small countryside home, her fingers stained with caramel. On the wooden table before her lay dozens of imperfect candies. Some melted, some cracked, but her eyes still sparkled with quiet determination. She had a dream: to create a handmade candy brand that carried the taste of childhood, the kind of sweetness that reminded people of home. But to everyone around her, that dream was nothing more than a foolish fantasy. "Candy won't pay the bills," her aunt had told her. "You should find a real job." Even her friends had laughed, saying, "You're not in a movie, Diep. Who would buy your candy when the supermarkets are full of famous brands?" Those words hurt, yet Diep didn't argue. Every night, she stayed up late experimenting with flavors, boiling sugar in an old pot until dawn. The tiny kitchen smelled of burnt sugar and hope. Her hands were covered in blisters, her eyes red from sleepless nights, but her heart was alive. Still, loneliness crept in when no one seemed to understand. Then came James. He was not the richest man in town, nor the most romantic, but he had something far more valuable: faith. One evening, he came home to find Diep sitting on the floor, her failed candies scattered around her. Without a word, he knelt beside her, picked up one broken piece, and tasted it. A smile touched his lips. "It's sweet," he said gently, "just like your dream. If no one believes in it, I will." In that moment, something in Diep's heart melted. Not from the warmth of the caramel, but from the warmth of love. For the first time, she felt that maybe her dream wasn't impossible after all. With James by her side, she found the courage to believe again. From that night onward, everything began to change. Not in an instant, but like the slow rising of the sun after a long storm. James became Diep's first and most loyal supporter. Every morning, before leaving for his own work, he would help her prepare ingredients, peeling fruits, measuring sugar, and wrapping the candies one by one. It wasn't glamorous. Their kitchen was small, the air sticky with sweetness, and the sound of boiling sugar filled the house. But there was a kind of happiness there that neither of them had felt before. James often said, "Dreams don't start big. They start in places like this, with burnt pots and tired hands." Those words became Diep's strength. She began to record every recipe carefully, writing notes about each batch, how long the sugar should boil, how much honey to add, which flavor made people smile. Still, challenges came like waves. The first batch she tried to sell at the local market melted under the afternoon heat. Children who tasted it said it was too hard, and a shop owner refused to stock her products, saying they looked unprofessional. That night, Diep sat silently in the dim light, her heart heavy with disappointment. But James refused to let her give up. He took her hand and said softly, "Do you know why I believe in you? Because you care about what you create. That's something money can't buy. We'll fix the recipe. We'll learn together." He spent days helping her research new wrapping materials and even learned about proper candy storage. They laughed at their own clumsy mistakes, at the candy that turned black, at the labels that peeled off, at the times when the sugar didn't melt evenly. Slowly, things began to improve. Diep's candies became softer, prettier, and tastier. One afternoon, when she returned to the market, a small girl tugged at her mother's sleeve and said, "Mom, can I have one of the pretty candies again?" That small moment made Diep's eyes fill with tears. For the first time, her dream, their dream, was starting to taste like success. Weeks turned into months, and Diep's little candy project began to bloom into something more. Word spread quietly through the town about the woman who made candies that tasted like childhood, like home, like love. People didn't just come to buy sweets, they came to see the sincerity in her eyes, to hear the story of how she and her husband worked side by side to create something beautiful out of almost nothing. James often watched her from afar, a soft smile on his face. Every time she laughed with a customer, he saw the same girl who once sat by the river, dreaming of doing something meaningful. He never told her, but he admired her more with each passing day. But success, even small success, always invites new challenges. One day, a large confectionery company contacted Diep. They had heard about her handmade candies and wanted to collaborate. In truth, they wanted to buy her recipes and use her brand to expand their market. The offer was tempting. The amount of money they promised could change their lives forever. James asked her gently, "What do you want to do, Diep?" She hesitated. "I don't know. Part of me wants to accept, so you won't have to work so hard. But another part of me feels like this is just the beginning. If I sell my dream now, what will be left of it?" That night, they stayed awake for hours talking about their fears and hopes. James didn't push her one way or another. He simply said, "Whatever choice you make, I'll stand by you. You built this dream with your heart. Don't let fear decide its future." The next morning, Diep wrote a short letter to the company. She thanked them for their interest and declined the offer. When she handed the letter to James, she smiled faintly. "I'm not ready to sell my dream. Not yet." James wrapped his arms around her and whispered, "That's my Diep, the woman who believes even when no one else does." At that moment, Diep realized something deeper than success, that having someone who believes in your dream can give you the courage to keep it alive, no matter how uncertain the road ahead might be. Months passed, and the small candy company began to thrive beyond what either of them had imagined. Diep's handmade sweets became this symbol of authenticity, of warmth and resilience in a world chasing fast profit. Children laughed as they tasted her caramel candies. Couples held hands while sharing chocolate pieces wrapped in paper hearts. And old neighbors often said, "These candies taste like the days we used to dream." James stood beside her through every challenge, every sleepless night, every storm that threatened to wash away their hopes. When a shipment was delayed or a batch of candy melted in the heat, Diep would panic. But James always stayed calm. "It's okay," he'd whisper. "Dreams take time to ripen, just like love." Then one day, they received an invitation to a national entrepreneurship event. Diep was nominated for the Inspirational Businesswoman of the Year award. She was stunned. The girl who once sold homemade candies at a street corner was now being recognized across the country. When she stood on stage to give her speech, her voice trembled, but her heart was steady. "I started this journey with nothing but a small dream and a man who believed in me when no one else did. People laughed at me, told me it was foolish. But belief, real belief, can turn even the smallest spark into a flame." The audience applauded, but James's eyes were misty. He didn't care about the trophy or the fame. He only cared that Diep had found herself, stronger, braver, and more radiant than ever. That night, as they walked home hand in hand, Diep looked up at the sky and whispered, "If you hadn't believed in me, none of this would have happened." James smiled softly. "You're wrong," he said. "I believed in us, in what love can do when two people refuse to give up." And under the soft glow of the city lights, Diep leaned her head on his shoulder. They had faced doubt, hardship, and fear. But together, they had turned a fragile dream into a lasting legacy. Proof that faith, love, and perseverance could outshine even the darkest nights. Months passed, and the tiny candy business that once felt impossible began to bloom like spring after a long, bitter winter. Diep sweets weren't just candy anymore. They carried her warmth, her sleepless nights, and her faith in something real. Each piece she wrapped by hand seemed to hold a whisper of her journey. Children laughed as they tasted her caramel drops. Couples shared her chocolate hearts as tokens of love, and the older villagers would smile and say, "Her candies taste like the old days, when life was simpler, but dreams were sweeter." Through it all, James remained her anchor. When storms of doubt swept through, when an entire batch of candies melted in the heat, or suppliers failed to deliver on time, Diep would feel her world collapsing again. But James never flinched. His calm voice would steady her trembling hands. "It's all right, love. Dreams take time to ripen, just like us." And somehow, every time he said that, she found the strength to keep going. One morning, a letter arrived, an invitation to the National Entrepreneurship Forum. Diep had been nominated for the Inspirational Businesswoman of the Year award. She stood frozen, disbelief clouding her eyes. The same girl who once sat on the roadside selling homemade candies in the dust and heat was now recognized across the country. The night of the award ceremony, Diep stood under the lights, her voice trembling as she held the microphone. "I started with nothing," she said softly. "Nothing but a small dream, and a man who believed in me when no one else did." People laughed, said it was foolish, but belief, true belief, can turn even a spark into a flame. The audience rose in applause, but James, sitting in the front row, didn't clap immediately. He just smiled, the kind of smile that holds years of love, of quiet faith, of shared struggle. That night, as they walked home under the city lights, Diep looked up and whispered, "If you hadn't believed in me, none of this would have happened." James squeezed her hand gently and said, "You're wrong, Diep. I didn't just believe in you. I believed in us, in what love can do when two people refuse to give up." And in that moment, surrounded by the golden glow of street lights and the soft scent of sugar still clinging to her hands, Diep realized something profound. The candies she made were more than just sweets. They were pieces of a dream built from love, perseverance, and faith. No one had believed in her dream. No one, except James, the man who never gave up.